Welcome back everybody to part 2 of this 2-part series. In this part, we're going to focus on the 4 wide by 6 tall cylinder made with 3 pounds. We're going to throw this one a little quicker than in part 1. So if you want to see the more in-depth video on throwing these cylinders and a new technique that I introduced, which is the pinch and pull, go back and watch part 1, which is located right here. And then come back and jump into part 2 so we can make this cylinder that's a little narrower and a little taller than our 5x5 counterpart. I have timestamped the video, so don't be afraid to skip around to the sections that is the most interesting to you. Just make sure you watch my closing thoughts at the end of the video to help you understand how to use this training and to continue improving your cylinders with both more and less clay. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, let's get the 6x4 going. So same thing, got your clay, roll it, tap it. And I'm not going to do slap centering on this one because my hands are covered in slip. So that would actually just make this really messy and splatter. So if you are doing slap centering, always make sure your clay is dry and your hands are dry. So instead, I'm just going to go ahead and start pushing down. And I can blend my edge and then start centering. So for the 4x6, I want to get this clay about 4 inches wide and then start centering it to that and then start digging my well. So cone up. And when you cone up, you don't need to cone up that tall. That's more than enough. As long as you're applying downwards pressure and you're really compressing the clay at the base, you can really get the center without coning up too tall. Okay, so right there, that's about 4 inches. And we're going to throw this one a little faster. So same thing, thumbs to begin the dig. Right, another way to dig that you might have seen, you use your one hand to brace and one hand to push down with your other hand. So it's braced against my webbing here and I'm just sliding. It also works with the other hand where you brace with your right and slide with your left. And the cool thing with that, if you have tried that and that's the way you do it, or you want to try it, is when you open, it gets very easy where you just kind of pull this hand outwards. Or same thing with this one, pull. And as long as your hands are braced, this is a really stable technique. But for me, because I learned with my thumbs, that is the way that feels the most natural for me. So I'm going to go back and do the squeeze like I did before. So before I start the initial open with that technique that I showed earlier, I'm going to go ahead and set my inside corner nicely. So I'm really compressing the bottom with my middle finger, and I'm really compressing that inside corner because I really want to get this initial pull done very well. Okay, I got the clay ready, got my nice flat floor, got my inside corner. Just to repeat how this works, my left pointer finger inside, left thumb outside, and that squeezes and lifts up. Then I bring in my sponge with my right hand, connect it to my thumb, compress, and lift up. These are one of my favorite pulls. And this time, if you notice your clay wall is getting wider, you can actually use your palm to push the clay in and pull up. So it's a really versatile technique. So I'm going to go ahead and squeeze at the base, really compress the clay and open. And then now I'm going to bring it up. And then my whole inside of the left finger is up against the clay wall to really compress that and pull. So that first pull, I already got it to about 4 inches tall. And the downside of that technique is you can't really do it once your hands can't reach. So I'm going to go ahead and reset that inside corner with my pointer finger. And I'm going to shift my pointer finger inside, and my thumb is still going to be on the outside. So I can engage it once my sponge hand gets to my thumb. So a slight variation. And then to kind of help me out, I'm going to go ahead and just collar this in just a tad bit so it doesn't open up too much on me. Okay, so I push out, push in, and then I pull. And then once the clay gets up to here, now I can squeeze with my thumb. So this is another variation of it. And then really focus my pressure with my outside hand inward because it's opening up. Get to the top and release. All right, let's do a collar, and I'm pretty sure I reached the 4x6 or 6 tall by 4 wide. So I'm collaring by doing that kind of squeezing in and lifting. Nice and slow. Get to the top, even it out. Doing a centering pull. And then let's go ahead and measure. Okay, so it's a little wider than 4, and the height is a little under 6. So one more pull I should get there, but because it's a little wide, I'm gonna do a collaring technique to get this narrower before I do my next pull. And so I really like this collaring technique because it can really make your base narrower and you'll gain additional height. So just to see how much height I'll gain, the clay is about 5¼ inch tall. Okay, so you do this you make 2 C's with your hands and connect them together to make one big C, or a Kamehameha if you watch Dragon Ball. Push in, tilt your wrist downwards to compress the clay, and then slowly go up, and then even out your hands. Okay, so push in, compress the clay, tilt my wrist downwards, and then I'm going to go ahead and slowly lift my hands up while maintaining that same width I had at the bottom. Okay, when I get to the top, leave it there for a few seconds, and then release. Okay, let's see what the top measurement is now. And we are basically at 4, but the bottom is still wide. So let's go ahead and narrow that a little more. So once again, I'm going to really do that compression and squeeze. And then I don't really need to make it narrower at the top, just doing that compression. So that's a little straighter. And remember, before I did this, it was slightly wider than 4 and around 5¼ tall. So let's see how tall I got just by doing those. So right now it gained almost ½ inch of clay without doing any pulls. I just compressed the clay, and it is a little narrower than 4 now. So that's a cool way to get your clay taller and narrower without having to do a pull. All right, now for the last pull, set my clay up, get my hand in, and it's not that much wider than my knuckles, and my whole hand here is covered in slip. So get my hand in, push out, push in, and I do the pull. So this might get off the camera after this pull. And right there, I already know I'm going to hit my size, but I'm still continuing the pull upwards. And I'm releasing the pressure around here, midway. So technically this is my 3rd pull. And when I get to the very top, I do lighter pressure. And then at the very rim, I'm evening the clay out, looking at the rim for thickness. And I can get my left thumb and push down and compress to do a compression at the same time. And then I release. So let's check for measurements. We got 4 inches wide by 6½ tall. So I'm going to change the camera a little bit and see how tall I can get this with 3 pounds. And I'll try to do it with 2 more pulls. So let's wash my hands so I can change the camera, and we'll do 3 more pulls. But initially, this more or less will hit the dimension. But we also want to try to push beyond the requirements and see if we can get a little taller. All right, let's do 2 more pulls and see how tall we can get this. Okay, I don't really want to check for thickness because I'm just going for height right now. All right, let's get it wet. Get our hands wet, especially the sides. Okay, and then remember, push out at the base, push in at the base, and then pull up. So push out with my inside hand, push in with my outside hand, compress down with my inside hand, my left hand, and then I do the pull. So 3 things before you do the pull. Okay, and then I'm starting to release the pressure a little bit right here, but I'm still continuing the pull. And now I need to actually lift my right hand, my outside hand, up off of the splash pan, so I'm floating it. If you want, you can try to brace your hand against your body at this point. And now I bring my left thumb out. I continue the pull. If you want to see more ceramic videos, don't forget to like and subscribe. That way it helps grow the channel, and you'll be able to see these videos as they're released every week. All right. The top got a little wider, so I'm going to add a little bit of water. I'm going to color that in just a tad bit. And we'll do the last pull, and we'll see what the final height and width is. So one thing that may help before you start your next pull is you can actually just compress the bottom to get a head start to get rid of that skirt. And that can help before you actually do the pull. Okay. My inside looks pretty good, but let's do that again. Push out, push in, pull up. Get my hand wet. Push out. Push in. Compress down from the inside and then pull. A really big pull bump. And then as I'm pulling, I'm always looking at the sponge and slightly below it, because once you start pulling taller and thinner, you may start seeing twists form. And I'll make another video about how those are formed and how to fix it. Okay, keep my hands there at the top a little bit, and then release. All right, so before I straighten the clay wall out, let's just see our current dimensions. 4 wide by a little under 8, so 8¼ tall. So at 3 pounds, you can get it pretty tall. But remember, we're just trying to reach 6 inches. So there's always more clay here. And then I'm going to straighten the clay wall. Actually, before I straighten, so I'm going to float the tool and then push the clay wall out here. It's going to kind of create a little indent at the bottom, but I want a nice cylinder. Right, you can see all that clay getting scraped against the tool. And then let's get the rib and clean up the bottom. And I just keep it against the clay wall and I just push straight down. Nice and slow. Even, consistent pressure. All right, hit the bat. And we'll cut and remove. And another cool tip, you get your wooden knife, if you angle it kind of away from your body, you can actually collect all the trimmings and the clay that's not attached without getting it stuck to your clay. Alright, and there we go. We got the cylinder with 3 pounds to 8 by 4. So the goal is to get it as tall as possible and trying to hit 6 by 4. And if you get it taller, your pulling is getting better and you're on your way to start throwing bigger and taller. So there we go. Here are the cylinders that we made. We have the 5 wide by 6½ tall, and this one is the 4 wide, and this one's about 8 tall. Now when we look at the sizes that we were trying to aim for, this is the 5-inch tall, this is the 6-inch tall. So at 3 pounds, you can see how much taller we can actually get the clay. And we actually probably could get it a little taller, about 1/2 inch to 2 inches, because the clay walls, you can see here, are a little thicker at the bottom here, a little thicker than 1/4 inch. So that gives us a little more clay to work with. So how can we use this training to improve? Like I said in the ending of part 1, the first way to do it is you start decreasing the weight. So instead of 3 pounds, you throw with 2½ and see if you can hit these set dimensions, the 5 by 5 or the 6 by 4. Then once you can hit those at, let's say, 2½, decrease it again to 2 pounds. And around 2 pounds is probably where I would kind of keep it at to hit these dimensions. Anything below that, the clay gets super thin, and it's possible, but it just may be a little more frustrating. That's option 1. Option 2 is you keep it at the 3 pounds. And once you can hit the sizes that we set, then try to aim for something that's taller. And that way it'll get you comfortable with throwing these set weights, but then you can start pulling it taller. And once you can kind of do those option 1 and option 2, then we can start increasing the weight to 3½, then 4, then 4½, and 5, and so on, until we can start throwing bigger tallers and ideally hit those double digits, the 10-pound cylinder. So if you liked the video, please don't forget to comment and subscribe and like. That way it helps to grow this channel, and I love talking to all you guys and reading all the wonderful comments that you guys have. And we are going to continue moving on to the next part of this cylinder series, and we're going to start throwing larger pieces with more clay. So stick around, that will come out in a few weeks. And until then, as always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.